Alright, what is up guys? I'm back for another Zoids review with the new setup. So let me know what you guys think about this. I think it's actually pretty cool. I recently purchased this rotary display stand that has a mirror on the bottom, and I think it's quite a nice way of showcasing these model kits as we go forward with the review. I don't have the motor in it or the battery in it right now because it's like a massive big old D battery, so we're not going to bother with that right now. We're just going to rotate it manually, which is fine. Today we're going to be looking at the new Beast Liger from Zoids Wild Zero. I suppose it's not new anymore. This guy's coming up in almost a year old. And we have another retrain of him that already exists in the form of the Rising Liger. But it would be a good opportunity for me to talk about Zoids Wild Zero a little bit. This is underneath the exact same model as the Wild Liger that I've already reviewed. So if you guys want to know kind of what the build process of that was like, then go check out that video because I actually showed unboxing it and the little baggies and the loose pieces in the Wild Liger review. If you take off all of the armor from this guy, he is the same skeleton underneath as the Wild Liger. So definitely keep that in mind if you're looking to buy both kits. You're basically buying the exact same model but with some minor aesthetic differences on the top. So let's go ahead and bring in the camera closer and take a better look at this guy. Okay, so we have the Beast Liger up close here. So a little bit about the Beast Liger in terms of the story. So unfortunately, and this may be a bad thing in terms of my integrity of doing this review when I'm deciding to do it, is that I have not seen the majority of the Zoids Wild Zero anime, so I can't really speak on what it does in the anime and the different sort of peaks and valleys of the storyline there, but I guess I can talk a little bit about just the basic premise of it. So I mentioned in the Cannonball review, Zoids Wild Zero has a very strange premise to its plot, so it's not one of those like, oh, it's Planet Z and everything, just like in the other Zoids anime. It actually takes place on modern Earth, and the Zoids' home planet, I guess, was dying or whatever, and so they opened some kind of rift in space and teleported to Earth and caused a bunch of destruction, which brought upon this like alternate history, world-changing event where Zoids sort of coexist along with humans. But there is a very similar Healing Republic versus Gylos Empire sort of conflict going on in Zoids Wild Zero, which is kind of refreshing. Not that the premise of the original Zoids Wild was bad or anything, but it is really cool to have a series that is just a lot more appealing on the surface. It has better human character design, and it looks like it has a more interesting conflict, whereas the original Zoids Wild, for some reason, seemed like it was more geared towards kids, but it is kind of hard to say. I need to actually sit down and read all the manga and watch all the anime for it. This is the protagonist Zoid, as you may expect, for Zoids Wild Zero, piloted by Leo Conrad is his name, and at the beginning of the series he does use it as a courier Zoid, very similar to how RD was utilizing the Liger Zero in Zoids Fusers, which is kind of strange when you think about it, but for all we know, it's a one-of-a-kind. There are no others like it, which makes perfect sense, and is sort of a natural evolution of the Wild Liger. When we talk about the model kit itself, the best way to kind of illustrate what's different about it is to just straight up go ahead and do the side-by-side comparison with the Wild Liger. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Also to show off the box art back there a little bit. The box art is pretty fantastic for this guy. So we'll go ahead and do the side-by-side right here. So the Wild Liger is a little bit more sleek and sort of trimmed down, whereas the Beast Liger has a lot more flair and a lot more protrusions, which does give it a very different aesthetic to it as well. There's also color in places where the Wild Liger did not take advantage of, such as right here on the center of the head. We get some more red in there to sort of give it a more menacing look, whereas the Wild Liger does not have blue in that centerpiece right there. The mane especially pops out a lot more on the Beast Liger, and the Beast Liger does have a more wide face to it a little bit, whereas it's more narrow on the Wild Liger. There you can definitely see what I'm talking about there. I do not have the pilot up here on the Beast Liger like I do on the Wild Liger, which is right here. These guys are kind of, they're okay, kind of gives you the sense of scale and everything, but I don't particularly like the way they look on there, so I did not include it on the Beast Liger or the Cannonball. The feet as well, the claws, are noticeably more bulky and more intimidating on the Beast Liger than on the Wild Liger, and that does sort of help the issue I talked about with the Wild Liger with the fact that it looks very disproportionately sort of short. It doesn't have the proportions that a lot of the other Ligers do. If you do a side-by-side comparison with like a Shield Liger or Liger Zero or something like that, like I did in the review for the Wild Liger, you will notice that he's got these spindly little legs, whereas the other Ligers in the past have more longer, more proportional, more lanky legs. But that problem is circumvented a little bit when you add a little bit more bulk onto the Beast Liger here. So the Beast Liger has, again, much bigger feet, and as well the on the side here, the accent pieces of armor right here, again, are much, much bigger, a lot more flare going on there. But for some reason, they don't sort of give it that disproportional short look like the Wild Liger does. The Wild Ligers are very much like aerodynamic fins, so to speak. And then on the back here, where the actual switch is to activate the motorized function, which apparently I had mine forward, but there's no battery in it anyway. That piece has actually been significantly reduced in size on the Beast Liger compared to the Wild Liger, which is interesting. The Wild Liger's switch back there is, the cover for it is much, much bigger. And then the Wild Liger, one of the big complaints we had about the Wild Liger is it appears to lack any kind of armor on the tail whatsoever. And you can see where they have improved that here with the Beast Liger and added some armor to the tail. This actually does kind of serve as somewhat of a weapon in the anime. The Wild Liger, it just really begs the question of why was there nothing added to this bony tail here. It's a very small tail for a Liger, and it just has no bulk on it whatsoever, so the Beast Liger does look much, much better in that regard. On to the elephant in the room, so to speak, with this design that I'm a little torn on is the actual weapon feature. Either through the use of the motorized function, as it walks along, the gear function gradually moves the head down and the weapon flips forward. And of course, you can do that manually at any time, and when you lower the head down, it forces the mane to spread apart, the mouth to pop open, and the head to kind of face forward in this sort of I'm getting ready to pound sort of stance, which looks really cool. You get to see inside the mouth there. And of course, the obligatory blade flies forward, which is a really cool function. I'll go ahead and show that off again. So I want you guys really to watch. I showed this off in the video for the Wild Liger already, but I really want you guys to watch the head itself when we do this. So when the head is up like this, you can see the mane is back, the mouth is closed, and the head is sort of at rest. But as we pull it down, it sort of forces that stuff out, which gives it a much meaner look, which I think is really cool. Again, the same function does exist on the Beast Liger because it is exactly the same model underneath, but my problem is in concept, the Beast Liger's weapon is really cool, whereas the Wild Liger's center fang, it does kind of give it a sort of sword vibe. The Beast Liger just has 3 symmetrical claws, so to speak. But my problem is how they deploy. So when you deploy this initial piece right here, you think it would just fly forward, but then you get a second layer of claws that flip out from that, and that in concept is really, really cool. But the problem that I have is when we actually do that, the pieces almost always fly off. So these yellow gold pieces inside of the red fixture up here almost always fly out, and there's nothing really permanently affixing them to the weapon rack at all. So let's see what happens when we lower the head and operate the action here. So that was a pretty successful deployment. 2 of them flipped forward, the other one did not, but it actually did pop out of its thing. So it's supposed to look like that, where again you have, if I can flip these back, yeah, so you have one claw like this, which is pretty cool, pretty fearsome looking, and then you have the sort of second form of that where the claws are flipped all the way forward like that, which is just really, really cool looking. But my problem, like I said, is that there's nothing actually attaching these at all inside of the weapon rack, and I don't know if I just did something wrong in the construction. If you guys can shed some light on that, I would definitely appreciate it. If you guys have had the same problem with your Beast Ligers, if I was just not paying attention. But again, like I said, the mouth opens, which again, you get some very fearsome looking front fangs there, and the mane just looks incredible, all flared out like that. So Really, really cool. I also have a bit of an issue with keeping, it's behaving on camera today, which is amazing. I have a bit of an issue with keeping the weapon in its resting spot back there. Again, it's behaving on camera today, which is amazing to consider, but typically when I try to put the head back up at the resting position, it just simply flies back forward again, whereas the Wild Liger is a little bit more reliable in that regard. I don't know if that is my specific model, like some of the pieces were not molded correctly and so they don't necessarily fit together like they should, or something of that nature. I don't know, but let me know if you guys have that same problem with it. But overall, I think this is a fantastic kit. It's definitely one of the cooler looking models from Zoids Wild and Zoids Wild Zero. So definitely recommend picking it up. If you already have the Wild Liger, do keep in mind it is the exact same kit underneath. And so if you've already built it, you should be able to build this guy in like 10 minutes or less. It's just different armor pieces, and you can actually interchange the armor on each one if you really wanted to. So if you wanted more variety in your building and in your collection, maybe not necessarily getting both of these would be my recommendation. And then again, the Beast Liger has a evolution form in the Zoids Wild Zero anime, and a retrain known as the Rising Liger, which looks fantastic. All the white on here turns to gold, and it gets a different weapon system that has a sort of revolver gun on it and a big sword. It's an asymmetrical weapon as opposed to this giant claw, which does look pretty cool. I do have the Rising Liger, and I will be building it and reviewing it pretty soon over the next couple months. So let me know what you guys think. That's about it for this video. I will definitely talk more about the Beast Liger when we have the anime finished and I can watch all of it and kind of give you guys my opinion from a story perspective. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.